Thanks, Yafees, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time.
It's a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
So, first things first, would love for you to just briefly tell me about your journey. What was your first role and how did you get to where you are today? I would love for you to also talk about what you're currently doing and what your company does.
I think really what kicked off the ball was my senior year in school. I did a year internship at American Express. It was, I guess, the first big logo in the resume. So that helped jump off things a little bit. But even also right after school, I started my own agency. I was interning at a place and I realized they needed help in a local Manhattan store. So I got my first day job right after school. And then I proposed to the owner of the store, the place that I was interning at as well. Like, hey, if I start an agency, would you want me to still keep helping you out? Now move on to a real job. So he said, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do that. So that's how I got my first client. And that owner also expanded his stores and businesses, so he also brought me on. So the business started growing as well on side hustles. At the same time, I always kept a day job. So that's kind of how I got started. The digital marketing agency really took off like once we had Dr. Oz's foundation as one of our clients. So we were doing that and a few other clients. So that's when pretty became pretty big. So then I kind of like took off from corporate America because the agency side was doing pretty well and went abroad, had some other experiences. Was a corporate trainer in the Middle East, stayed there for a while, and then yeah, came back and I was offered my last role. I was offered that coming back from the Middle East. It was the first marketing hire at that company. It was great, and then 3 years after that, I joined this current role where I started off as a senior digital marketing manager, and after that, like basically worked my way up to becoming director within a year.
Love to kind of get into that side hustle. I think that's super interesting how that helped kickstart your career. But let's kind of focus on the role that you have right now. You made the jump from a senior manager to a director. It seems like in a fairly short period of time, in just a year and a half. Would love for you to break down a couple of things. What would you attribute the promotion to? What have you done to make this jump? Maybe some of your successes. Overall, would love for you to kind of break down your formula for success.
For sure. I think, a lot of it has to do with being at the right place at the right time. I think this is something unsaid a lot of times, right? That's another thing I think people will say, yeah, it's all because of my work and everything. But I think being at the right place at the right time, luck has and also you definitely need a champion within the organization who's going to kind of keep moving you forward, right? So I think that's something people who are in a marketing manager position need to start thinking, do they have champions within the organization to bring them up? My former boss, who went on to doing other things right now, was my champion within my organization. So whatever I did, he was celebrating it. He was like making people know about what I was doing, my accomplishments, our team's accomplishment. And I think he always, so when I eventually brought it up that, hey, you're leaving, can I get, when I talked about the position change with him, he really fought hard to get me to where I am. And that's the side which is kind of a lot of times unsaid. But the other stuff, obviously, there was results to speak for itself, right? So we came in, I was the first digital marketing hire in the company. We had product marketers, we had just generalists, but I was the first digital person. So started the SEO from the ground up, paid search and social from the ground up, from strategy to implementation. We have fairly longer sales cycle, but we were able to show a 10x ROI within my first year. And I think that helped a lot to kind of, get to where I am today.
So it's a mix of, showing obviously you can do the work and the results, but also having that internal champion that's helped pushing those results up to leadership.
Right. And I think
Yeah.
people misunderstand, like if you're trying to go up, the more upper you go, you're less of an individual contributor and more of a people manager position. And so essentially a few things like to come together, right? People actually would want to work with you. They see you as someone who is able to manage people and not just the marketing strategy and the tactics and all that, right? Because that's what your champions are also looking for. Is he someone likable, someone people would respect, but also having those core skills, right? You're able to now move away from raw brass tactics and moving to more like strategic strategies, right? You're thinking about the bigger picture. You're able to bring that into, like not like, hey, if I had $10 million, this is what I would do now, right? You're actually able to see the business reality and figure out what it makes sense for your business and how to dial that into tactics and stuff like that. So as you're moving up, it's like also you have to ask yourself, do I want to be in that position where I'm comfortable managing people as well as the day-to-day of the department, the numbers and all that stuff?
I know you'd kind of touched on it, but what would you say are some of the bigger skills that you focused on What were those skills that really helped you make that jump?
I think it's definitely a lot to do with it was heavily on the hard skill side in the beginning, a lot of collaboration, a lot of bringing in different stakeholders. We're in a very, I'm in biotech, so the industry itself is like I come from a business school background, so working very closely with the scientists, the engineers, the product managers. There's a huge learning curve when you come into this world, healthcare marketing, so trying to understand, are the scientists even hanging out, for example, in LinkedIn? Where are they searching for their products and solutions, right? How do they become solution aware, for example? These things, I think, so hard skills are super important at the beginning. If you don't have a traditional biology or life sciences background, and I think once they saw that you're comfortable with the science and the stuff, and then it becomes a bit more about people skills and stuff. So yeah, for sure, like being able to talk science language, but then dialogue, hey, how does the strategy, the tactics, the goals relate to the scientific community? To bring this together is like was super critical in the first year.
When you were making this jump, and even right now, what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced while transitioning into more of a leadership role, and how did you get around them?
Yeah, I think when you're about to get that promotion, nobody's pulls you aside and say, by the way, you're about to start managing people, right? And that's a whole different ballgame. You're now dealing with people, their ambitions, their goals, you're dealing with people's like aspirations. You have to, and sometimes it might be if you have a larger team, this one position available for up for grabs per promotion, and two people come to you for the same demand. Now you have to deal with that. You have to deal with this salary expectations. It's a whole different ballgame, and it's not as easy as, like, for example, create a Google Ads campaign or LinkedIn. It's all the fun stuff that we do. So I think that's the challenge. And obviously, you don't want to come off as the boss that everybody like. It's just you have to be realistic. You have to do right by the business. Also, you don't want to become a person who's like not likable or thing like that, right? Because to be an effective leader, you also have to be trusted and respected, right? So I think that's the things that you have to, if there's not good mentorship or training in the company, you might have struggled with. So yeah, for me at least, it was interesting. Like one day I'm just like doing all the campaigns and the analysis and the demand gen, LinkedIn ads and Google and Twitter ads, and suddenly next day I'm like, responsible for doing salary reviews and all that stuff. That's part. It was initially was challenging because I mean, it was almost like just dropped in the deep end and had to figure it out.
And would you say that you leaned a lot on your existing mentorship or your champion within the company to learn those things?
Just soaked in a lot of how he used to. He's just a very kind man. He was a great person. Like I think I really admire him, respect him a lot. I think I soaked in a lot of how he handled us and how he dealt with the situation with when I was reporting to him. So that's how kind of bridge that gap.
And would you say it's super important for somebody who's trying to build up their career to work for somebody that they can brain drain and learn all that stuff from? Or do you think it's also okay if somebody was kind of out there doing things on their own, just maybe learning from people in their community and stuff like that?
I think a bit of both for sure. I think the best thing you will do is learn by doing. I think LinkedIn could be a source of content and consumption and consume culture. But if you don't do anything with that knowledge, you'd be like overwhelmed because marketing moves so fast that today what the thought leaders are sharing within maybe a few months is just outdated, right? So you have to do and learn and stuff. So, that's a major part of it. I think for every young people, young professionals, they want to learn everything and then practice. I think it's like learn and practice immediately. I think that's very critical. It's good to always have a mentor. I think in smaller companies, it's difficult if, for example, everybody's busy, they're wearing many hats, is bringing with that quality time you're probably not going to be able to have with your bosses and managers. It's probably possible in larger corporations where they might have assigned you mentors and all that. But yeah, I think everybody needs to think about that from if they're working for a fast growth startup or scale up, they need to kind of figure out their own plan very quickly.
Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about managing up and then internal marketing. But let's start with managing up. What are some of your strategies for ensuring that your manager knows that you're doing a good job?
Yeah, keeping them in the loop, keeping them in email threads where I think they should belong. And, I think I was very open about our wins, what we got, our leads coming in. I think it was an open channel. There's a great collaborative environment. So everybody saw what you're contributing, but at the same time, it's making meaningful work. You're following up. Hey, it was done, but everybody's in the communication loop. Also, I think if you're looking to become a marketing manager to director, then you think of this whole responsibility as a pie. And then as a marketing manager, you have a small piece of the pie, and then you're expanding your share until you kind of can own the whole pie, right? So that's how the way I approach is you own a little bit of the strategy, a little bit of the campaigns and stuff. And over time, you do well, then you're responsible. You should ask for more responsibilities, expand till you're able to, go for department wise, basically. Setting expectations early, communicating a lot. I think if someone comes and says, only time you should stop communicating a lot is someone says, take me out, don't put me in those email threads, or I don't need to be in those email threads. It's always better, safer to lean in on the side of like over communicating and oversharing. I think, especially if you're a smaller company.
How about internal marketing, the rest of the business? How are you keeping them in the loop with the projects you guys are working on, what you're prioritizing, maybe what some of your results have been?
This is actually one of the weaknesses that I could do a much better job at this. I saw Mark Huber's metadata, like how they do it. It's Loom videos they share. I think we're kind of leaning towards that. It's kind of like async kind of way of just kind of putting it out there. But yeah, we tried this internal marketing newsletter, but has been good. I'm working on harder to educate. Twice a year, I meet up with the team back in our HQ in Germany. I try to present to them what we have done, accomplishments, and what we're working on. But I think it's not nearly enough.
I appreciate the humility. I find that it's one of the toughest things for marketing teams. Sales, customer success, product is always like a lot of the time, what is marketing doing or what are they working on? They know we generate leads or we put it in a blog post, but it's like specifically what are we doing and what are the results of it? So it's probably something we could all get better at as an industry.
And I think it's a good thing if you see this as critical, but if one of the mandate is revenue, focus on revenue, high intent opportunities, if it's smaller team, it's very hard also then go back and do internal marketing. So I think the leaders have to choose their battle. They cannot always make everybody happy, but of course, do right by the business. I think the other departments have the right to know what you're up to, and it also motivates them to see that. But yeah, as long as we know it's critical and it's not something that's not important, right? We cannot treat it as it's not an important thing to do. I think that's a good approach to have and eventually to get there.
I like the idea of a Loom video for updates. It's challenging to write out everything that you do in a systematic way. So if you can just kind of spitball and do some screen sharing, it's an awesome strategy.
I think Mark Huber's kind of posted about this. It was pretty awesome to see like they have a whole library of Loom videos. He showed everybody screen shares and stuff. I think that saves a lot of time. So I think probably in the near future, we'll try that out. We'll see how that goes.
I noticed that you're part of multiple communities, Exit 5, Pavilion, Rev Genius, just to name a few. What are you doing inside those communities? What's your involvement? And how would you say that's contributed to your overall career success?
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm a big DG fan, E5. I'm a top contributor in that community. I have the badge with it. So I wear that with pride. I was part of Pavilion and it's just Slack is not my jam. I make it a point to like go every few days, see what everybody has posted and contribute. It has been phenomenal from a growth perspective. I think the amount of knowledge being shared, he has built a pretty amazing community. I have done so much business, like from recommendations from agencies to contractors to it's crazy.
So yeah, you've had various roles, including your own digital marketing agency, like you said. So, a lot of different roles, your own side hustle. How would you say having, different various roles and then also working on your own agency has helped you out?
Marketing is about people and how people make decisions. That's the core of it, right? We can use jargons and acronyms and thousands of different concepts, right? Like ABM and lead demand gen and CPLs and all that. But at the core of it is it's people and how people make decisions. I think in my side hustles and other work, if the frame of mind has been always to like I had to close my own deals at that time with my side hustles, my agencies, right? Dealing with people problem, how they see customers, how they solve customer problems. Everything was always tied to revenue, right? You perform or you're out the door kind of situation, obviously with the agency, right? So all of this to say is that, it's about being, if you're a marketer, to see from a people perspective, why is someone buying that? What caused them to buy that? To kind of analyze those micro events in your life across the board. And I think so if you have different experiences, different jobs, different companies, different people that then you'll probably be able to articulate those things better, right? And you see much more. But of course, it's to be aware that you are going through this exercise to also learn about people, how they buy, why they buy, what triggers them to buy, and how is that those information relevant to your own business that you're, have or company that you're working for. So for sure, like, try to do as much as possible. For example, if you start up an SEO project on a website, you'll learn very quickly what people are searching for, how to get in front of them. That's the knowledge within your own control that you can see. You can go to Google Search Console queries, right? Like, oh, this is what my website is being found for. What people actually typing to find you, right? This knowledge that you can glean and say, okay, how's that transferable to what I'm doing in my work? And so, and it's across the board, right? You can see keyword research, search terms across Google Ads, how people are interacting with your LinkedIn ads. Why did they find it funny? Why did they find it insightful? Things like that, right? If you're a marketer, I think you do kind of turn that switch on always, like, I'm in the business of studying people. And I think also someone told me this, I'm not sure how accurate it is, but psychology majors turn out to be great marketers. I think there's a truth to that. But for sure, like, I think it's, we need to, we're in the business of understanding people deeply. And, all the other stuff is like secondary, like the fancy stuff we use to sound sophisticated.
Yeah, having your own thing. I mean, it forces you to think like a business owner and not just a marketer. And at the end of the day, you need revenue. So in order to get revenue, you need to make sales. And, it's something that we're all pushed to do in marketing, but, unless you've had to do it on your own dime, it's probably, you don't feel the same pressure or don't think of it the same way. Last question here. What advice would you give to marketing managers who aspire to become directors in the future?
I think first thing is, do they actually want to be people managers? Some people are great IC, right? They love their job, they love what they're doing, and suddenly they're directors. And a lot of people, from my experience, hated it because now they're suddenly dealing with people issues and people problems. They don't want to deal with that. It's very stressful. I know the title is a natural progression of your career, but is it something that you really want to be, like a people manager? Because that's a big part of the job. Of course, you can keep certain aspects of being an individual contributor, but the big part of your job, directors and up, is definitely people management, resource management. So I think that they have to be honest with themselves. Is they see themselves doing that or not? I think the second part is, tying your career with as much as possible to the top, which is the revenue, right? Moving away from frameworks of like, and also being, I think, a T-shaped marketer helps a lot. As much as best practices across SEO, paid search, paid social, copywriting, as much skills as you can rack up. You don't have to be the best at it, but not enough to, like, someone, no one can, you can't get played basically, right? And when you see a bad copy or you see bad practices, you're able to point it out. So as much as those skills you can rack up, it's pretty good. I think we're living in a time of great thought leaders and influencers and who are creating great content. We're able to scale up quickly. There's CXL, there's LinkedIn, there's so many, the E5, right? The communities. So it's just a matter of finding the right people and, learning from them. So yeah, I think those are the few core aspects of, like, if you're looking to marketing manager to director, are you able to create strategy, present those strategy, and then boil it down to tactics and write the goals and being able to have a scalable plan, and then all the pressure that comes with it, right? Are you able to present to the board? Are you able to justify your numbers? Are you comfortable doing those kind of things, right? Are you going to be like, so these are things, an individual contributor is really protected, right? Because their bosses handle all those relationships. So I think these are the things that they have to really think about. And then, I think the skills part, and IC can easily manage because they are really good at the skills, right? The tactics that is needed to do good. And also nowadays we work closely with demand gen marketers, product marketers, everybody works together. So it's easy to understand people's expertise and see how they're doing things. But like the other stuff that comes with it is like the untold stuff you have to think deeply about before making the jump, or before wanting to make the jump, actually. I think there's nothing wrong with someone saying, I just want to be a senior digital marketing manager and just, if this company, I max out my skills or something, I go to another company and, try something else there. Like if I maybe want to go be a marketer at Apple or Tesla and different industries, I think that should be fine. Nobody should think about it like, oh, the person's not ambitious enough or anything like that. It's more like that's his comfort.
I think that's awesome. I feel like I haven't heard too many people spin it that way. They usually just start talking about the skills you need to do or the things you need to do. So I like starting with asking yourself what you actually want first and then working from there. It's been great having you on. Appreciate you taking the time, Yafees. Yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, man. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.